everybody, welcome to this week's edition of The Verdict. We've got a packed show for you, 6 races to analyse, and we will take you to Sandown, to Newmarket, and firstly to York on Saturday. It staged an excellent card, a massive crowd, 30,000 people in there, a great atmosphere and a lovely sunny day. And from a sectional point of view, the most interesting race of the week by far. It was the Sky Bet York Stakes, Group 2, over 10 furlongs. A very interesting contest it was. We'll send them on their way here. It was won by Bangkok, second Juan Elcano, third Mohaafeth, and fourth the Aidan O'Brien trained Armory. Now, Mohaafeth is sat last at this stage, and Mohaather is a pacemaker for him. We presume he's a pacemaker. He's out in front under Liam Jones. But the problem for Mohaafeth backers is that they go no pace whatsoever. It's single file. The pacemaker, Juan Elcano, Bangkok, Armory, and then Mohaafeth out the back. Now, this point where I've stopped it, they are crawling. The sectionals, 14.04 for the second furlong, 14.07 for the third, and 14.05 for the sixth furlong. That's really, really pedestrian. They're not going fast enough for Mohaafeth, who's anchored out the back purposefully by Jim Crowley. Wants to get him relaxed, wants to get him settled and produce him late. Remember when he got to the front at Epsom and then had a little target on his back for Piledriver to go out once again, and he just nutted him out of it. So they didn't want to deliver Mohaafeth too soon in the race, come with a smooth run. The problem is he's at a positional disadvantage the way this race has run. Look where the first two are. If we stop it there, here's Bangkok and there's Juan Elcano. He's in a brilliant position to strike off a really steady gallop, and Mohaafeth, well, he's got loads to do. And what he's going to end up having to do is quicken to get to the leaders, who are also quickening themselves, and that's what the course track sectionals show us. Still crawling, turning in. That's a 14.05 furlong as they turn in. You'd be expecting them to be doing 12s. That'll be a benchmark really for a Group 2 over 10 furlongs at York. You'd be expecting them to carve out even 12s. Well, they're not. They're carving out even 14s. But in a minute, the sprint starts. You can just see here the jockey's body language. Juan Elcano moving up to the pacemaker, and off they go. They start sprinting. So what Mohaafeth's got to do, he's right back here, is now go and catch horses that are sprinting ahead of him. And he's got an impossible task, because these are good horses in front of him. Bangkok's a very decent horse. Juan Elcano comes fresh from a win at Royal Ascot. He's got a very, very difficult task. And just how difficult is that task? The 8th furlong, these leaders are going through in 11.22 and 11.56. It's impossible for him to come and try and get to them. He fires an 11.95, as you can see there, but he cannot get to these horses that are sprinting in front of him. But he does brilliantly well to at least get to the girth of Bangkok. He might just briefly head in. He sprinted to catch up with them. He's got there, and now he's going to pay for that. He's going to pay for sprinting to get to them, and he weakens in the dying strides and is edged out by Bangkok, Juan Elcano on the far side. Now, what are we to make of that overall? Well, the way the race was run, he had an impossible task, absolutely impossible task, trying to sprint and catch horses that were already sprinting in front of him. He had a huge positional disadvantage, but I think he flashed the fact that he's a brilliant racehorse, a really good racehorse, because he was able to catch them. Even though they were sprinting fast ahead of him, he could still sprint and get to them. He just didn't have enough left in the closing stages. And I think this suggests that he is still a top-class prospect. And I wouldn't be surprised if Connections come back here for the Juddmonte International and really throw his hat in the ring as far as that's concerned. He clearly handles York. His trainer, William Haggis, he likes York as well, so that could be the race for him. Of the vanquished, well, Juan Elcano ran pretty well. He had the best position in the race, but he couldn't outbattle Bangkok, who is a very tough performer, and we'd have to congratulate Andrew Balding on getting him to win this race. It was a good renewal of this particular contest, and it was a third win on turf for Bangkok. He's a pretty good horse on the all-weather as well, but a third win on turf for him, and a really nice winner for David Probert as well, bagging a Group 2. A race that was completely and utterly affected by pace, but Mohaafeth still flashed plenty of ability. Let's sum up what we saw then in that Sky Bet York Stakes. Firstly, the pacemaker crawled and left Mohaafeth in a poor position. Secondly, Mohaafeth then in a poor position. He had an impossible task, trying to close down leaders who were sprinting away from him. Let me remind you, how fast were they going? Furlong 8, 11.22. Furlong 9, 11.56. Very hard for a horse coming from the back, giving away lengths to make up ground under those circumstances. It was a massive effort from Mohaafeth to get so close, flashing loads and loads of ability in doing so. I think he's a Group 1 horse. He remains a top-class prospect, and he does emerge as the best of these in this particular race by some way. That's to take nothing away from the game and tough Bangkok, who's been well handled by Andrew Balding, or Juan Elcano, who's steadily improving as his career progresses. And we just must give plaudits to Andrew Balding. He has all of his horses in fine form at the moment. He's been in good nick all season, and this is another high-profile winner for him. Let's move on to sprinting at York on Saturday now with the Sky Bet Dash. It's always a very competitive handicap. This year was no exception whatsoever. And the winner comes from stall 12, Venturous. We want to watch him at the start here, for he rears. The second horse was Music Society, who jumped out of 8 under Ella McCain. And the third horse was Blind Beggar, who was gambled on, and he came from stall number 4. Send him on the way. Watch stall 12. There he is, rearing up and missing the break. He has done that on a number of occasions in his career so far, and it left him towards the rear, along with Music Society as well. In fact, they were last and second last at halfway. And sprints at York rarely pan out for hold-up horses or horses that miss the break. It's a speedy track, and normally you want to be at least handy. But they are right out the back. We'll stop it there and pick them out for you. The winner is in there, and the second is there. They are both right out the back. The third, who we'll make a lot of later on, is here, Blind Beggar, right up with the pace, and he runs a superb race, and perhaps they're a little bit unlucky not to land the gamble, for he was very well supported indeed. But what happened here was that it went very fast up front, just a bit too fast, and they left themselves prone to those from coming from off the pace. The Music Society now making headway and about to get to the front, angles out round Blind Beggar, and then kicks a length or so clear and looked for all the world as if he was going to win this race. Traded at the minimum on the Betfair exchange in running, but Venturous now is being launched from the back of the field under a very strong drive from Connor Beasley. And he gets this horse up in the dying strides. Ella McCain doing all she can on the far side of Music Society, but it wasn't quite enough. And Venturous gets up to win for the David Barron team. He's a very good all-weather horse, this fella. But when things drop right for him, he's pretty good on the turf as well. And this was a perfect race for him. It's just what he wants. A very strong pace, overly strong, and he's able to surge late. What about the third horse? Well, he has run an absolute blinder. Blind Beggar, he's just about in front now with the white cap. He was up with that strong pace throughout, yet he kept rolling and saw everything else off that had been up there with him in the early part of the contest. And therefore he needs upgrading a good deal. And I think he'll win a decent sprint handicap going forward. He's definitely one that you want to keep a close eye on. But Venturous for David Barron winning that race nicely. The final time, 1:12.63. It's an okay time, but the main thing about that race was how it was run. It was very, very strongly run, and you had to be somewhere near the back, as the first two were, if you were going to get involved late. So strongly run sprint. The first two, they were last and second last at halfway. That is a remarkable for York. You don't often see horses that are that far back winning in a sprint at that track. Blind Beggar then, he's definitely one for your trackers. Stick him in your Racing TV tracker and keep a very close eye on him. A big run was expected according to the market, and they got a big run for sure, being up with that strong pace throughout. What about this fella then? Connor Beasley. I thought he was excellent in the finish there. He was very strong indeed, and he's on a crest of a wave at the moment. He's riding with a ton of confidence. He fired in a winner at Musselburgh on Sunday. He's going really well, and he's a guy to be with at the moment. The winner is always going to be a hostage to fortune, so he's not the sort of horse that you could perhaps follow next time, because he needs everything to drop right but it's dropped right 11 times for him in his career. So he's a multiple winner, but he just needs a strong pace to go out, whether it's on the all-weather, he's very good on the all-weather, this fella, or on the turf. But it was at his day, it all dropped right for him. Keep an eye on Blind Beggar. From York to Newmarket we go. On Saturday, the 340, I think, was an interesting contest. It was a 10 furlong Class 3 handicap for which Warren went off favourite, and he won the race. He jumped out of stall number 4 and he wins for Richard Kingscote and Sir Michael Stout. I think he's pretty good, this fella. I'll send them on their way. As I do, it's important to remember that I don't think this was a particularly strong race. He beat Big Kit and Songkran and Gloucestershire. Was back in 4th place. Gloucestershire, the horse that's pulling quite hard with the sweat on his neck. And towards the outside, number 4, that is Warren, who came here after winning his maiden at Pontefract last time up, and he started life off in a handicap off a mark of 86 for Sir Michael Stout. Richard Kingscote on board. That's a burgeoning relationship we need to keep a close eye on. Now, this was a steadily run race. It wasn't very strongly run. It was a bit more evenly run than the Sky Bet York Stakes that we saw. And you remember I talked about Mohaather in that particular Group 2 at York going through in 14s, and that was pedestrian. Well, this you would say is a slow gallop, and they've gone through in 13.9 and then 12.7, 12.5 and then a flat 12. And that's just a steady gallop. So that puts the Mohaather gallop into some sort of context. That was a real crawl in the Sky Bet York Stakes. This is a bit better, but they're not going that hard. So why do we like Warren? Well, it's the way he puts his rivals away in the closing stages that I think's most impressive. He's an improving horse. I think there's more to come from him. He laboured a bit at Pontefract last time up, but the ground was quite soft there. Ryan Moore rode him, he brought him across to the stand side, and he had to fight pretty hard for his win. But here, back on better ground, we've seen him quickening up sharply to get rid of his rivals in good fashion. There he is, big white face, going between horses. And his last 3 furlongs is pretty impressive. He's about to sprint in a minute, and he went through in 36.32. Individually, they were 11.57, 11.32, and 11.79. He's about to fire those now under Kingscote. You'll just see here, he's taking a while to pick up. Kingscote gives him a smack with his right hand, and then he goes, and then he picks up. And he'll surge clear of these to win 5 lengths and more. He wins good looking, this fella. I think he could be pretty useful. What's he going to be now? He's going to be a mid-90s horse, that's for sure. I think by the end of the season, we could see him being possibly a pattern performer, possibly a listed horse. This guy is the sort of horse that Sir Michael Stout gets hold of, and he gets them progressing run by run by run. And I'm sure you'll agree that he won that fairly comfortably. What are the vanquished? Well, Big Kitten, he's relatively exposed. He's run okay in 2nd place in the middle of the track. He got his own way out in front a little bit. Songkran was 3rd. The 4th horse was Gloucestershire on the wide outside. Very sweaty, red cap. He had the fastest individual furlong in the race. He fired an 11.25 when they were going down into the dip. I think that shows he retains all of his ability. I think he's a horse that's quite highly thought of, but he was out on the wing, possibly didn't want to be there, didn't get any cover as well. He got a bit sweaty, and perhaps the handicappers overrated him and giving him a mark of 94. But nonetheless, the fact that he was able to fire that 11.25, I think that tells you that Gloucestershire's not a horse to give up on. I think he's still got plenty of ability, and we might see him winning before the end of the season. So what do we see? Well, I think we saw a pretty good horse winning a weak race. The sectionals told us that he can sprint, that he's pretty fast, this fella, and he's improving rapidly. That maiden win at Ponty was okay. You wouldn't have thought he'd perhaps go and bolt up in a handicap straight after it, but he did. That mark of 86 will be no more for him. He's only had 6 career starts with Sir Michael Stout, who's got him going forward now. And I think he's a good, better horse on decent ground, the sort of ground he got on Saturday. Don't give up on Gloucestershire. I've just mentioned this. Furlong 9 was the fastest in the race at 11.25. Visually, you couldn't tell that. It's the value of the course track sections. They tell you that this horse was still able to flash ability, even though not get involved. Plenty of stamina in the winner's pedigree. The Dam is an unraced sister to the Useful Was, who she won decent races at 12 furlongs. So it's not out of the question that Sir Michael will ask him to go further. Big handicap win? I think so. I think it's entirely possible that there's a big handicap in maybe a listed contest somewhere down the line. He's a rapid improver for Sir Michael Stoute. From the success of Waran over 10 furlongs at Newmarket on Saturday to a nice sprinter, I think, in the shape of Imperial Yellow. This was a good-looking sprint. Imperial Yellow came out of stall number 6. Second place went to Jadwal, who jumped out of 8. And third was K.N. Gorm, who jumped out of stall number 4. Here's what transpired here. I wanted to look at this race because of the course track sectionals that I had a good look at. And I think Imperial Yellow is a pretty useful sprinter for Roger Varian. Marco Gianni was on board. We had a bit of a difference of opinion early on, a bit of a split between the two groups, and it threatened to be a bit of a messy contest because of that. But they'll merge fairly soon, and that means we get, I think, an honestly run race. I think they've gone a pretty good gallop here. The winner, Imperial Yellow, has fired 4 sub-11 second furlongs in a row. The third furlong 10.91, the fourth 10.81, the fifth 10.82, and the sixth 10.99. So that's quite unusual. This is a very good sprinter, I think, with a high cruising speed. And Marco Gianni was always travelling well on this Son of New Bay. Over on the far side, just about to pull round Jadwal and then quicken up in good style and go and win in a final time that was all right, 1:11.51. Now still cruising, and about to go and fire a final 3 furlongs of 34.28. Quite an impressive performance this from this young sprinter, finding loads for pressure, quickening up well. Pays a huge compliment to Inveigle, who beat this horse at Yarmouth. But I think a big sprint handicap is within the scope of this nice filly. I think she's pretty useful. She won this handicap off a mark of 91, so she's 100 horse all day long, and probably better than that. And the Roger Varian will be eyeing up some big pots, I think, some big targets with this horse, because she travels all over. Look at her, right-hand side of your screen, cruising while everything else is being pushed along. Marco Gianni's not gone for much at this stage. As soon as he does say go, wow, does she pick up in fine style to fire that 1:11.51 overall time, which is a good time for the grade, and she's straight and true all the way to the line. She's well worth following, well worth putting in your racing TV tracker for a big sprint handicap sometime later this season. Let's have a look at what we saw there then. We definitely saw a truly run race. Those midsections were pretty quick, but she cruised through those midsections, those sectionals of under 11 seconds. She was still on the bridle and she was still able to go away from them. So she's good. Improving 3-year-old she is, and she's won 3 of her 6 starts to date. There we go, 4 sub-11 second furlongs from the winner. That's impressive stuff. Slow final furlong was 12.48, but the midsection of the race was really hot, as I've been saying, with those sub-11s, and she was entitled to get tired late on, but she put her rivals to the sword before that. A New Bay, not a name that crops up very often, but he's an exciting and underrated stallion, in my opinion, and I think there'll be a lot more to come from him. He's by Jubawi himself, so he's got the Jubawi blood, and keep a close eye on New Bays, they're good. The 210 at Sandown on Thursday was the Star Stakes, listed status, 2-year-olds involved. And I wanted to look at what was one of the best performances of the week from Inspiral, who jumped out of stall number 3 under Frankie Dettori for John and Thady Gosden. Got the better of Wild Beauty, who came from 9 for Charlie Appleby and William Buick. And Gosden had the 3rd as well, and Sunstrike, who jumped out of stall number 4. When I looked at the course track sectionals for this particular race and looked at them in the context of other 2-year-old races all week, this filly fires the fastest furlong of the week. I couldn't find anything faster, and we'll highlight that in a moment or two. And I think she deserves to be towards the 4 for the 1,000 guineas. She's about a 16-to-1 shot for that after this particular effort. She's by Frankel out of a Selkirk mare. Now remember, we're at Sandown, and winning races at Sandown, you don't often do so from right out the back, and that's exactly where she is under Dettori, and Dettori seems very happy to be there. He has no problem with dropping her out, holding her up, getting her settled, and then bringing her with a smooth run in the home straight. Wild Beauty, she's a good filly. She sat in 4th place at this stage, and the gallop was pretty honest. The finishing speed percentage, 105.57, so she's finished off the winner a little bit quicker than she ran the rest of the race, 5.57% quicker through the last 3 furlongs, which were very impressive indeed. 35.88 her last 3 furlongs, and that was miles better than anything else any of the other horses could do. Now this is where it starts to get exciting for her. She's got down to the 3 pole and she's about to sprint, and look how quickly she makes up her ground, goes past Wild Beauty as if she's standing still, and then this big furlong, this 11.15, that is flying along through the 6th furlong. She's absolutely quickened up like a wild horse and has put these away with no problem whatsoever, and that tells us she's very good, she's very fast. She's just quickened up from the back, she's got to them and then gone away from them just as she liked. 11.15, 11.93, and then a 12.8 for the final furlong, geared down by Frankie Dettori. You have to be excited by what she did there, how quickly she made up her ground and how she sprinted through that furlong of 11.15. That's when she went past Wild Beauty when she did that. And Wild Beauty must have wondered what was happening. This will show it. Look, she's angled to the outside by Dettori. She looks a little bit awkward for a stride or two. And he gets hold of her and she just makes up the ground really, really fast. You don't see many horses doing that from the back of the field, being able to be angled wide and then just go past the others as if they're standing still. But that's what she did. You have to be hugely impressed with this. She hit a high of 3-1 in running when she was in behind, in running punters thinking, well, that's not where you want to be at Sandown. You want to be nice and handy, but they didn't know that she had an 11.15 up her sleeve and possibly more to come from her. She deserves to be at the head of the Guineas market, make no mistake about that. The May Hill might be next for her. John Gosling sort of said afterwards when he was interviewed by Nick Luck that perhaps just steady away with her a little bit, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see her in the Fillies Mile one day. I think she's very, very good. Let's sum that up then. One of the best performances of the week as far as I'm concerned. I thought she was brilliant. The last 3 furlongs of 35.88, much quicker than the rest in that field. Nothing could go that fast. From a poor position, furlong 6 of 11.15 just saw her surge into contention. She just kicked in the turbo and flew past them. Hugely impressive. 16-1 for the 1,000 guineas. Well, I wouldn't necessarily put anybody off, to be honest. A lot of water to flow under the bridge between now and then, but that seems like a fair enough price given what she did there. Mayhill, John Gosling, I think he just wants to go softly a little bit with her. I'll go Mayhill next, but possibly the Fillies Mile somewhere down the line. He'll certainly be eyeing up the guineas, I've no doubt about that. Yet another top-class horse sired by Frankel. What a year he's having. Adayar, of course, winning the Derby and the King George, and there's a host of other Frankels that have been doing him proud, and he's got another really decent horse here. This sire is so seriously coming of age now. Time now to have a look at what I think was a superb ride by Oisin Murphy. He is at the top of his game at the moment, trying to retain his Jockeys Championship. And this was in the last race at Sandown last week. And it was on a horse called Arenas del Tiempo for Simon Dow. And Oisin makes every yard of the running here. And he's allowed to do so to some extent by his rivals. But the course track sectionals explain beautifully what he did. There he goes, straight to the front. And what he does early on is he goes quite fast to establish an advantage. The 3rd and 4th furlongs, he went 11.35 and 11.71. You can see there, he's not taking a pull. He's letting this horse stride on, as this horse did at Brighton when winning last time up. Hood off has been important, I think, for Arenas del Tiempo. That's a good angle sometimes. Here he goes, establishing a lead with those 2 fast furlongs, 11.35 and 11.71. Then what does he do? Then he steadies it. In the 5th and 6th furlong, he gets a massive breather into his horse. He goes 12.46, 14.22, easing right back, easing down, getting this horse to settle and relax in a good rhythm. He's established his lead with a couple of quick furlongs, then steadies and relaxes. And then he starts to pick up again, and the sectionals show this beautifully. So after he's steadied through 5 and 6, 12.46 and 14.22, he starts to pick up. Furlong 7, a 13.13, just increasing the pace a little bit now, having settled and filled the tank. He's just building again, and what's he building to? Well, he's gone from the 14.22 to a 13.13. He's not winding it up too quickly, but then the 8th furlong, 12.68, and then he goes a 12.84, and then starts to get a little bit tired later on with a 13.38. So he's gone quick, slow, and then he's just wound it up gradually, having got that breather into Arenas del Tiempo. A really magnificent ride from the front. To a degree, it looks like they're going to come and catch him. Lady Rockstar, Thunder Lily, trying to get there. They finished 2nd and 3rd. They can't get there. And you wondered whether Murphy had just gone too hard, and that they were going to run him down late. But no, he's better than that. He knew what he was doing here. He went fast. He established a lead. He steadied, and then he wound up gradually. And although his filly was getting tired in the closing stages, he judged it to perfection and hangs on to win for Simon Dow. 2 wins on the bounce for this horse. Holly Doyle won on her last time up at Brighton, where the change of tactics helped, making all does suit Arenas del Tiempo. But this was brilliant from Murphy. The form is nothing to write home about, but it was just worth showing to analyse what a great front-running ride it was, and just to sort of outline how the figures tell us what he did. It was absolutely brilliant stuff from Murphy, one of the best rides of the week in a modest contest. Let's quickly sum this up then. Arenas del Tiempo, well done to Simon Dow, incidentally. A brilliant front-running ride from Oisin Murphy. They don't come much better than that, and the figures tell us that. Established an advantage, the 3rd and 4th, 11.35 and 11.71, so going quite hard, but he wanted to establish a bit of a lead and not be hurried by anything else. Then it's time to steady. Furlong 6 and 7. Ease it down, steady it, get a breather. The sectionals for that were 12.46 and a 14.22. Steady away, filling the horse's lungs, and then going away again in the closing stages, but gradually building the tempo again. The fastest last 3 furlongs are Thunder Lily, 37.45, but oh dear, far too much to do. Oisin Murphy had ridden them to sleep in behind. Oisin Murphy is charging, in my opinion, towards the Jockeys' Championship. He's riding at the top of his game. There's plenty of other jockeys riding at the top of their game at the moment. I mentioned Connor Beasley earlier on. William Buick's riding brilliantly too, but I think Oisin Murphy is charging towards that Jockeys' Championship. That was a superb ride from him. Hope you've enjoyed what we brought you in the verdict this week. Some very interesting performances. Don't give up on Mohaather. Inspiral is definitely a Guineas filly going forward. And Oisin Murphy, absolutely brilliant at Sandown. See you again soon. Bye-bye.